Hurricane George made Key Largo anything but paradise today as rising water threatened to swamp mobile homes. Heavy rain quickly added to the flood on the island. High winds have helped to create wreckage that has been blown around. Most of the Keys have lost electricity, also water. Some cases the phone lines are down, although earlier reports of 50% or more of phone lines being down was incorrect. So some good news there, and conditions are just beginning to improve a little bit on the Keys. It will probably be a while longer before you'll be able to return if you were one of the smart ones and evacuated when told to do so. Let's take a look at the latest stats so you can watch this as it moves away. It is centered 550 miles southwest of Mobile, Alabama. That's maybe 20 miles north of the Keys, so still close enough to cause hurricane force winds. Sustained winds are 105 miles per hour. It's moving northwest at 14 miles per hour. Pressure has dropped only slightly, 978 millibars. We do expect to see Hurricane George continue to strengthen now that it's back over open waters. Some of the areas that may be affected, of course, will be along the east coast of Florida, and that's where we've had a crew standing by. Bill Keneally is in Naples, where conditions aren't as nice any longer. We've heard reports of stronger winds, maybe even some power lines down in your area. Is that true, Bill?
That is correct, Jill. Yes, I think Hurricane George is making its closest pass to us here in the Naples area now. The hurricane is probably about 100 miles to the southwest of the area. Checking out the surf, you can see it's starting to come up some. We're getting a little more in the way of a curl, a swell coming in from the southwest. And as that hurricane continues to move towards the left to right on the screen here, we will see the swell increasing towards evening. There's even some sand airborne now. Winds at the airport in Naples gusting as high as 48 miles per hour last hour. With that, we've had some power surges here at the hotel. The cable has gone out for a while. It's back up now, thankfully. I can check that radar periodically. In addition, we've had reports of some power lines down. I know on Davis Boulevard, a couple miles east of here, reports now of a live power line down. So, Jill, hopefully this is about as bad as it gets. The upside to all this is we haven't had a whole lot in the way of heavy rainfall. This area, believe me, the ground is spongy beneath a foot. So we don't need much rain. It looks like the bulk of the rain, the lion's share of it, should stay to our south. But yes, the winds could top out probably close to 60 miles per hour before we're all said and done. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Bill Keneally in Naples, Florida. So far, not too bad where you are.
Right.
Joining me now is Dr. Steve Lyons, our hurricane expert here at the Weather Channel, to talk about the progress of Hurricane George. Now, this is a hurricane that we expect to strengthen, but if you look at the latest satellite picture, it actually looks like a weaker hurricane.
Yeah, it does. It's not looking all that great right now, but keep in mind this is only a very short loop, about less than 6 hours, and things can change very quickly in tropical cyclones. And we typically see the cold cloud tops associated with these weaken in the late afternoon and then reappear in the evening and reach a maximum extent in the early morning hours, and that's what we're seeing now, where a lot of the overcast high clouds are dissipating. The circulation is still intense, and the aircraft reconnaissance out there still shows the pressure dropping just a little bit.
Now, as it moves on that track to the northwest and gets a little bit farther away from this landmass, I assume that would mean that it's going to have a better chance of strengthening with warm water all around it.
It would probably have a better chance if it's completely free and clear of land. Keep in mind there are hurricane warnings up along the coast here of West Florida, and the reason for that is because the Hurricane Center is expecting that some of the edge of the stronger winds or the hurricane force winds could affect the coastline there, not necessarily that the eye is going to run over them. So as it moves to the north, they could be caught on the edge by some hurricane force winds. That's why that warning is up there. And that's not impossible at all. You can see that in general on the visible imagery here, the eye is still well intact, although not a perfect pinhole eye like we would see on a Category 5, but still a powerful circulation, and we need to watch it very, very carefully.
Now, Dr. Lyons, this is a Category 2 hurricane. When it came through the Keys, we've had some reports of damage, reports of 4 or 5 feet of water over some roadways, but this may be a very different hurricane when it makes the next landfall.
It definitely could be. If it's a Category 3 or more, that could be a big difference. Plus, depending on where it landfalls, makes a huge difference. The worst case scenario would be George moving up toward from the southeast, or east-southeast toward New Orleans, where the right front quadrant of the circulation moves right into the New Orleans area. If that happened and it was a Category 3 or more, we could have a major storm surge well above 10 feet and as high as 20 or 30 feet if it was extremely strong hurricane. That's a scenario, not a forecast, by the way.
All right, we'll talk about the forecast track in a moment. I want to also mention that while the heavy, steady rain is down here toward the Keys and also Monroe County, we're seeing some thunderstorms farther north. Some of these have produced tornadoes, and that's not uncommon. We do have a tornado warning in effect for Charlotte County at this point. That's the only tornado warning that we have in effect right now. Around Miami, you're looking just fine. You're really even between heavy bands of rain. Around the Naples area, where our crew is, we expect to see that rain returning. So we will see some heavier downpours. And of course, as you mentioned, Dr. Lyons, we do have hurricane watches and warnings that are in effect. And new hurricane watches from Morgan City over to St. Marks in Florida, and that's anticipating that next landfall. But for right now, we're concentrating on the west coast of Florida. Again, how far off the coast will this be, and will that keep folks really out of the strongest winds?
Well, obviously, right now, we think that they could be caught by some hurricane-force winds on the periphery, and that's why the warnings are up there. But it looks like it's going to come up this way and generally head toward the Pensacola, Mobile area in general, but keep in mind the 72-hour forecast, plus the width of the hurricane-force winds, makes the estimate basically that wide right now. That will narrow as time goes on.
Little margin of error when you go out 2 or 3 days, not so much for the next 2 or 3 hours. And
Correct.
So that's why the hurricane warnings are in effect. Again, there's your wind field, and you can see why folks up in Naples and over in Miami have really only had the strong wind gusts. That's been enough to do some damage, though. We've had reports of some power lines down here and there. And also, of course, there's the threat of severe weather. As you mentioned before, these will typically be relatively weak tornadoes.
In most cases, they're F0s through F2s, occasionally an F3, but not usually a devastating F4 or 5 that on a Fujita classification scale of tornadoes. That doesn't minimize the potential damage, and you can be killed by one, so be very careful, but they're not typically the ones that completely level a town or a street of homes.
Okay, so if you're just about anywhere else in Florida, up through Orlando, you may be well away from the coast and the immediate effects of the hurricane, but severe weather is possible, and this tornado watch is in effect until 11. Again, we can show you where some of the thunderstorms are coming through here. Orlando, some thunderstorms, especially on the southwest side of town, on Interstate 4 over toward Tampa. You're getting a break, although in Pasco County earlier we had a couple of tornado warnings, and then even farther to the north, a few scattered showers in the area. This is something that may continue for several more hours this evening. Let's talk.
Well, folks in Marathon on the Florida Keys still feeling the wrath of Hurricane George at this hour. Marathon continues to get pounded by heavy rain and hurricane-force winds and will most likely feel the effects through the afternoon. At its height, winds were gusting more than 100 miles per hour. Good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of Weather Center. I'm Jeanette Jones in the Forecast Center here at the Weather Channel. We are watching very closely what's going on with Hurricane George as it moves away from the Florida Keys and out into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Intensification is expected, and as we head into the weekend, it looks like we are going to have to watch this thing very, very closely. All interests along the Gulf Coast need to stay informed and keep it tuned here to the Weather Channel. I want to give you the latest information on Hurricane George as of 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. 24.7 north, 82.5 west. That centers at 435 miles southeast of Mobile, Alabama. Winds at 105 miles per hour. It's moving west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. The pressure, 979 millibars. Let's take a look at the hurricane watches and warnings. We also have some tropical storm warnings that are in effect. Hurricane warning in effect for South Florida from Florida City on the east coast southward through the Keys, and for Florida's west coast from Longboat Key southward. Tropical storm warning is in effect for the Florida east coast from north of Florida City to Stewart, and from the Florida west coast from north of Longboat Key to Bayport. And now we have hurricane watches in effect for the Gulf Coast from Morgan City, Louisiana to St. Marks, Florida, as we are anticipating some problems as we head on through time into the weekend. I'm joined now by our hurricane expert, John Hope. John, it has been a rough day for a lot of folks across the Keys.
Yes, and now things should be starting to wind down just a little bit. The center of the hurricane is about 50 miles or so now to the west-northwest of Key West. It is moving away. It's moving toward the west-northwest. While looking at the radars there, we see they still have some bands of very heavy showers, and that means certainly hurricane-force winds and gusts for the next several hours. The Keys are pretty well shut down, and nobody is going to be able to do anything. Not much movement, and that's going to be the case for a few more hours.
All right, and hopefully we are going to continue to watch it move away from Florida.
Well, we are. We're certainly seeing it move away from the Keys. I think that's going to continue, and so far it's moving more west than it is north, so that is directly away from Florida.
As we look at this radar, we can still see the center of circulation with Hurricane George. We can also see those outer bands of stronger thunderstorms, too.
Jeanne, those bands of thunderstorms, not down here directly connected with the circulation, but those have been very rough, some of them, and that's, of course, where the tornadoes have been reported. And that's very typical. We don't usually see tornadoes in very close to the eye. They're much more likely to occur some distance out in the outer rain band.
All right, heavy rainfall, one of the bigger threats with Hurricane George.
Right, but now as we look at this picture, apart from these thunderstorms, and these will be passing very heavy showers, the heavy rain in Florida is pretty well confined to the very southern part and the Florida Keys, and that's about it in Florida.
All right, good news for a lot of folks. Now, as always, when we have a landfalling hurricane or a hurricane passing this close to land, we see the threat for tornadoes, as John was alluding to. Until 11 o'clock tonight, we have tornado watches in effect for most of central and south Florida, in fact all of it, and so you need to keep a watchful eye out and don't let your guard down, because it is indeed a distinct possibility. Now, as we look at this infrared satellite picture, John, we can see that it doesn't look quite as well organized as it did, let's say, earlier this morning.
Well, it looks well enough organized around the center, I think. What we see in some warming of the tops there, not quite the bright red, but it looks fairly well organized. It's still stronger, generally speaking, on the east side than it is the west side, and we can see that on the radar as well.
And folks in the Keys still going to be feeling some of that.
In the Keys, they're going to have this strong southerly flow, primarily from the south and southwest now as the hurricane moves away around the eastern periphery of the hurricane, and these winds there are going to diminish rather slowly, I'm afraid.
Tell us a little bit about the upper level dynamics and how you think that's going to affect this hurricane.
Well, we still have a good upper flow over this, for one thing, and that's going to allow it to strengthen some more, we think. It doesn't look now as if it's going to do it very rapidly, but we have a ridge of high pressure to the north off this picture a little bit, and then we have a low here over the Bay of Campeche, and this circulation around that low may be part of what's enabling this storm to go more to the west than it is to the north just now.
All right, let's talk about the projected path. A lot of folks have big plans this weekend, and they do include travels into the Gulf Coast. Let's talk about that.
Well, let's have a look at that. Of course, we're showing our usual cone, and the official forecast track is somewhere near up the center of that cone, but that's about as well as we can do. So, as you might suspect from where the hurricane watch is from Louisiana all the way over to St. Marks, Florida, that whole area shown up here needs to be alert, because some part of that area we feel quite sure is going to be sustaining a direct hit from the hurricane over the weekend.
And it could be stronger than it is right now.
It could be, and we're going to have to watch that very carefully. The official forecast does call for it to strengthen just a bit up to a Category 3. It's a Category 2 now.
Category 3 meaning a major hurricane.
Major hurricane, sustained winds 111 miles an hour or higher.
Okay, and we could see warnings go up as it gets closer.
Well, very likely we will.
All right.
We will.
All right, thank you so much, John Hope, for your expertise, and we'll continue to monitor the situation with Hurricane George as it moves away from the Florida Keys. As always, if you have questions about what's going on with the hurricane or anything else weather-wise, you may be away from your television set. We're on the internet at weather.com. Now we go back to the studio and Jill Brown.
Okay, thanks, Jeanette. Elsewhere across the country, you'll be happy to see things are pretty quiet. We have an area of low pressure here heading east. Along this cold front, a few thunderstorms. We may even see some severe weather. We also have some cool air that we've kind of been waiting on. That will start coming south of the border along with this front in the next few days to come. So we'll check a few radars. We'll start you in the northeast. A few showers coming your way in Manhattan. Looks like they're just off to your west at this point, but expect some rain for the evening rush. Atlantic City down through Dover, we also have some light rain showers. Here are your thunderstorms just northeast of Quincy at this point. Nothing today in St. Louis. Yesterday you had a fair amount of rain, but looks like you're in fine shape for the time being. We keep heading west and you'll find more rain showers, also light around the Great Salt Lake, and these are headed from southwest to northeast. And there you go, up there in northern Idaho, around Seattle, kind of wet. Boise, gray, not a whole lot of rain, but a few showers here and there. In Portland, after a long dry spell, now you're getting some showers on and off. We haven't seen any real heavy rain through here, but this is one of the cooler spots in the country. Cloudy and cool in the 50s today, while out in the plains, we're still looking at upper 90s. We're just about to October, and temperatures are still topping out well above 90 degrees. 97, that's Goodland, Kansas today. Again, once this front starts coming farther to the south, we'll put the nix on those 90s. As a matter of fact, we'll have some more cool fall-like weather in the next few days to come. And it looks like a bit more rain, too, along our two fronts. Showers possible from the Ohio Valley back to the Mississippi. And we'll see some showers also in the
And our tropical updates continue for today. And it's no wonder. It's been very busy. And it is still at the peak season. And it's no wonder, no surprise anyway. We're looking right here. Now, this is Hurricane Jeanne. And you remember Ivan a little further to the north, looking less than
George as it moves away from the Florida Keys now. Taking a look at our latest satellite vantage point, you can see the movement is definitely moving away from the Keys and away from South Florida, so that is good news, but we're still feeling the effects in the form of some rain bands, some stronger thunderstorms, the potential for tornadoes as well. Here's the latest information as of 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. 24.9 north, 82.9 west, the new coordinates, 515 miles southeast of Mobile, Alabama. Winds at 105 miles per hour, and it's moving west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Now we have some new watches and warnings. Want to go over these with you. The important thing to remember is that all the warnings along the Florida East Coast north of Key Largo have been discontinued. Okay? We do have hurricane warnings still in effect for the Florida Keys from Key Largo southward and for the Florida West Coast from Longboat Key southward. These warnings will likely be discontinued later tonight. Now, tropical storm warning is in effect, and I'll get to that in a moment. I want to go over the hurricane watch in effect for the Gulf Coast from Morgan City, Louisiana to St. Marks, Florida. A hurricane warning could be required for a portion of this area later tonight or early Saturday morning. So we just want to give you a heads up there. These may be changing to hurricane warnings, or at least a portion of these. Now, here's a look at the tropical storm warnings in effect for the Florida West Coast from north of Longboat Key to Bayport. Okay, the ones on the East Coast have been discontinued, so we're going to update this particular map for you. I am joined now by our hurricane expert, John Hope. The latest information is in, John, and do you think we'll see some strengthening?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I think I see some already. We've got some indications. We had a report from the latest reconnaissance plane shows the pressure is down some, and so did the report from Dry Tortugas. And looking at the satellite picture, that tells us it's getting better organized as well.
And moving away from the Keys.
It is moving away from the Keys. We're glad to see that. It's moving a good 14 or 15 miles an hour, and it's more than 50 miles an hour west of Key West. So even though they're getting raked by some pretty good south winds across the Keys, those winds ought to be diminishing. Still a lot of heavy rain, though, and the rain not over with yet there in the Keys. That's going to continue for several more hours.
We've also seen some bands of strong thunderstorms throughout parts of central Florida, and we think we'll still see some of that tonight.
Well, those are out there now, and you can see some of these bands. Some of these have some very, very nasty thunderstorms, and that's where tornadoes have been reported. And that's very typical, Jeanette, to see these kind of developments a good ways away from where the eye of the hurricane is.
When was the last time that the Keys saw something like this?
Well, I don't think in the lower Keys have been hit directly with a hurricane like this for a very, very long time. All the major hurricanes in recent years have either been north of there, so it's been many, many years since Key West has been hit with a hurricane as strong as this, directly.
All right. As we check out another vantage point of what's happening in Florida with the radar, we can see those bands of stronger thunderstorms. If you're anywhere between Tampa or even Orlando, you can expect more problems. And we do want to remind folks that we have a tornado watch in effect until 11 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. As John was mentioning, this is very typical with this type of scenario, and we just want to give you a heads up and have you keep an eye to the sky and know when conditions are changing very, very rapidly, okay? As we look at the satellite vantage point, we can see, just as John was alluding to, we may see a little bit of more organization here.
Yes, I can see the eye is getting a little bit better form. We can see that better on some pictures than we can others, but it does seem to be doing that. Right now I'm not anticipating very rapid intensification over the next several hours, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see it just gradually increase a bit.
Looking at the upper airflow pattern, what does it spell for us as we head into the weekend?
Well, we're looking at a couple different items. We have a ridge of high pressure up here off this chart, and then we have a low pressure in the upper atmosphere here, and the circulation around this low is tending, I think, to allow the hurricane to come more toward the west. And I should point out that the last several hours, the motion in the last advisory west-northwest, but for the last few hours, we see a bit more movement toward the west than we do the northwest, I think.
And as we look at the projected path, strengthening, you think?
Yes, we do think it'll get stronger, and we think it gradually is going to occur more toward the northwest. And these are the latest forecasts we have out. And what we're looking for, Jeanette, is another landfall sometime early Sunday, seems most likely. It'll be somewhere along this cone here. The official forecast track is more or less up the middle of that. But certainly if you're any place between Morgan City, Louisiana, and St. Marks, Florida, you want to be alert, because we feel sure that either later tonight or tomorrow that some of these hurricane watches that are in effect along the coast are going to be changed to hurricane warnings.
Want to make mention that Category 2 hurricane right now could become a Category 3. There's a big difference there.
Well, there is a difference, especially if you're at the low, if you go all the way from the lower boundaries of Category 2 to 3. But now we're getting up here a little stronger, 2 already. And it's 105 miles an hour, and it will be a Category 3 if it's more than 110 miles per hour. We think it'll get that without much trouble.
All right. Thank you so much, John Hope. We'll definitely be checking back with you in about half an hour. And as always, if you have other questions about what's happening with the hurricane and you're away from your television set, don't worry, we're on the internet at weather.com. Now we go back to the studio.
Thank you, Jeanette. We'll come back to you at the bottom end, the half hour after the hour. We are looking at rain showers across Pennsylvania. And let me note that about an hour ago, an earthquake did shake parts of western Pennsylvania just to the north of Sharon, PA on the Richter scale. It measured 5.2. Now, Erie, Pennsylvania reported a measurement of 3.5 on the Richter scale. We'll continue to keep you updated not only on conditions across western Pennsylvania, but we're seeing rain showers move through the east, Philadelphia, Camden, New Jersey. It looks like you're just about out of the clear, and it does look like we'll be seeing some of these rain showers move over to Long Island and then over the coastal waters. It does look like we're going to see more showers, but they're about a day away. We're looking at a warm frontal boundary extending to the Corn Belt. We have some cooler air coming in behind this front that's pushing through the upper Midwest, and certainly it's possible that we may see some rain showers from Chicago down to St. Louis, and we've seen a thunderstorm or two. Erie, Peoria, Illinois, it looks like a thunderstorm did push in your vicinity. It has lost its intensity at this time. Looking at the satellite imagery, let me just point out that we've got a big clear space out here from the Four Corners across West Texas, but because of some troughing, we are going to give way to some messier weather, and that too about a day away. Looking at the temperatures, it's warm out here where the sun has been shining for much of the day. Looking at Lincoln, with Nebraska, with temperatures in the 90s. Also looking at the Panhandle.
Thanks so much for joining us for Storm Watch. Top story, of course, on our Tropical Update, 4 hurricanes out there. The first one, of course, is George. George right there, a little bit west of Key West. We also have Ivan, we have Jeanne, and we have Karl. Take a good look at this because you just don't see this very often where you have 4 hurricanes out in the Atlantic Basin, which comprises the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean, of course. All right, let's have a look. First of all, closest to home. Let's go over to George as of 5 p.m. 515 miles southeast of Mobile. Top sustained winds 105. Good chance this is going to be a major hurricane. Major hurricane is a Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That starts at 111 miles per hour. So once it's cranked up to 115, we believe it will, then the category will change from 2 to 3. Pressure continues to drop, and that is really the main feature that we like to look at because the pressure tells us exactly what's going on with the system in total. As the pressure drops, it's telling us it's getting stronger, and it's starting to do that now. Visible satellite imagery, here's Key West right here. Center of circulation right there. That's where the eye really is. Air Force reconnaissance aircraft, the Hurricane Hunter, found a 15-mile wide eye. Not unusual at all for a hurricane. So as we look at the structure here, it does look like it's getting more of this traditional hurricane shape, more circular as opposed to the number 9, which it looked like a little bit earlier. Up to West Palm, out to Miami, hey, you fared really well. It was good to be prepared like this because we could have seen some of the conditions come in up across your areas that we did see actually today and last night through the Keys. Latest radar. Now be careful of this because we do have 2 spiral bands. One here, the other one now up through Tampa. Anytime you have spiral bands on a landfalling tropical cyclone, possibility of tornadoes. We certainly have seen that today. Center circulation with the eye right here. I can tell you what, it's not moving very much at the present time. So yeah, the all clear is not quite out yet for areas especially of the lower Keys. Here's the big picture. Hurricane Karl, minimal hurricane, moving away from the States, moving away from Bermuda. Hurricane Ivan, 5 p.m. EDT, 80 miles per hour, also a minimal hurricane. This one, check this path out, straight north, now hooking off to the northeast. And the other one out there, that is Hurricane Jeanne. Jeanne actually decreasing in intensity just a tad, down from 105 to 90 miles per hour. Now moving off to the north-northwest. So Jeanne starting to make that hook. Typically, when they're that far out, they tend to hook upwards. But you know what? With George actually developed a little bit farther to the south, and it doesn't look like much. But when they form down here as opposed to here, there's much better chance that they come across farther to the west. Here's the satellite picture, and there's Jeanne. You can see the picture showing the definite curve more in a northwesterly direction. So again, top story, that is George, and we have 4 hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin. Just doesn't happen often. Well, stay here at the Weather Channel. Much more about George. We have your forecast too.
Hurricane George gathers intensity as it pounds the Florida Keys and threatens the Gulf Coast. For continuous live coverage and the latest warnings, watch Weather Center next.
Do your nasal allergies make you feel like a prisoner? Do you feel trapped indoors, especially when there's so much you want to do outdoors? Nasacort AQ nasal spray lets you take control of your nasal allergies. Nasacort AQ is a once-a-day prescription medication that goes to work right where the problem is to relieve stuffiness and runny nose. Call 1-800-762-1020 for a free allergy relief fact kit, including product information about Nasacort and a $5 rebate offer. Take control. Take Nasacort. Nasacort is non-drowsy and non-habit-forming. It has a low incidence of side effects, including headache, sore throat, nosebleed, and increased cough. Results were similar in tests with non-medicated inhalers. For best results, Nasacort must be used daily. Maximum relief may take several days. Nasacort is also available as a nasal inhaler. For more information, see your healthcare professional. Call now for product information and a $5 rebate.